Welcome to the Best Known Church Show, where we show you how to 10x your reach with church marketing that will help you increase your impact, make more disciples, and become the cornerstone of your community again. This is for the leaders with an outrageous vision, because anything less would be an inaccurate reflection of our Creator. The ones who have unreasonable faith, because you know God works unreasonable miracles. And the ones who are relentless in the pursuit of your calling, because anything less would not make a good and faithful servant. If that's you, you're in the right place. Now, please welcome your host and guide on this journey to become the best known organization in your community, Justin Nava.
Welcome to the Best Known Church Show. I'm your host, Justin, and Pastor. My question for you today is, if you're attempting to communicate your church to the community, if you're attempting to promote your church, if you're running any type of promotion, raising awareness, or marketing or advertising your church, my question to you today is, are you sabotaging your church marketing efforts? Are you getting in the way, Pastor? I think a lot of us know that the church needs to be communicated, but we don't know where to go to find help. We don't know how to search inward, don't know how to search outward. So we decide we're going to take on the load and try these Facebook ads ourselves, try to fix the website ourselves, try to print these invite cards by ourselves, whatever have you. We decide to do it ourselves, and we end up having little to no results in our efforts. And it's worse because if you do this, if you take on these opportunities, and that's what they are. Church marketing is an opportunity to get more people aware of your church, to create more doors, to open and invite people to come and experience God through your church. And we have to decide, do we want to try to reach more people, or as pastors, do we want to try to minister to the people we already have? And a lot of times when we're doing it ourselves, we have to pick and choose and often sacrifice one to do the other. In today's video, I'm going to share with you how you can recognize the pitfalls of trying to do this yourself. And it is possible, okay? You won't be able to do as much, and you won't be able to do it possibly as effectively, but it is possible. I'm going to try to help you through this if you are a one-man team. I'm also going to show you how to kind of set a mind towards being a more effective pastor and using church marketing to bring people in that you can pastor, not do church marketing or do advertising for your church to go reach out to more people and add more to your load. Pastor, I want you to focus on ministering more effectively to the people you're called to reach, the people that come into your church. I don't want you to ignore them because you're too busy seeking others, right? So I want to make sure that you are at least aware of these pitfalls so you can avoid them. You can try to fill them, or at least if you know you're getting in this pit, you can at least do it with the full awareness that this is only a temporary pitfall. If I'm going to go in here, I'm going to go in here with the intention of getting out. I originally wanted to call this, are you getting in the way of your church marketing? There's a lot of pastors that I talk to that tell me that, hey, so-and-so almost did a perfect sermon or a very good sermon, but he just got in the way. Do you ever feel that? You ever preach a message and you come off the stage and you're like, man, I got in the way of that. I tried to make it too much, maybe not even too much about me, but I tried to do too much of what I think would have been good instead of letting God just speak through the message. I think a lot of us have to wrestle with that. And I think every pastor has to go through that phase where they have to balance how much of myself do I bring into a sermon, a message, a communication, an announcement, and how much do I just let the scripture speak for itself? I think anytime scripture can speak for itself. However, God chooses to use us and work with us, or really invite us to work with him, to communicate the message in a way that effectively gets the message across to different kinds of people. And so I totally understand pastors when they're the everlasting struggle of, do I preach and add a little bit of my personality, add a little bit more of it? Is this something that's a very hard message to communicate? And so I need to really bring in a couple other illustrations, a couple other stories, but we don't want to make it too storyful and less scriptureful. It is an everlasting battle. And unfortunately, when it comes to raising awareness of your church, promoting your church, getting the word out about your church, we can fall into the same pitfalls. We can fall into the same pitfalls. That sounds weird to say. And if I do sound a little stuffy, I'm in Houston right now. It's the week of November 16. We just had a cold snap come in, and it just affected all of our allergies and sinuses. So I hope you have a good time understanding me, and we still have some effective communication here and helping you learn what these pitfalls are, so you can more effectively avoid them, or at least, like I said, if you're going to jump in there, jump right back out. I want to give you that ladder, so if you're in the pitfall, you can climb out. My own pastor is a stand-up comedian. He's a Renaissance man. He's a stand-up comedian. He's a pastor. He was a church planter. He also runs a travel agency. He is a true Renaissance man, Pastor Tim. If you ever want to learn more about my church, ironically, it's not like any other churches that I work with, which is why I work with the church, is Crosswaves Church. And Pastor Tim's a great guy. However, if you watch his sermons, you will not think of him as a stand-up comedian. If you watch his sermons, or his Bible talks, as we call them, they are not humor focused. Sometimes a joke might slip out, but he is very intentional, coming from the stance of someone who does stand-up comedy, to leave humor out of the message. Now, depending on when you ask him, you might get a different answer. But from my point of view, I see it as he's trying not to get in the way. I think he has a gift for humor, a gift for stand-up, a gift to tell stories, far more than my own. But I think he knows that if he goes too deep into this gift, it can actually become an obstacle, in that he gets in the way of the message that God is trying to communicate to our church. And so it's very interesting that as a stand-up comedian, some pastors say, well, I wish I had the gift of, making people laugh on command or on cue or telling these funny stories. Whereas pastor says, I do have that gift. He doesn't actually say it, but he does recognize that he has that gift, but he intentionally leaves it off to the side, because he doesn't want to get in the way of the sermon. And what I want to do, Pastor, today is to make sure that you know how to not get in the way of your church marketing. I want to make sure that you understand what it's going to take to effectively market your church, and why, Pastor, you are actually not the one to hold that position of chief marketing officer. I mean, even most CEOs are not the chief marketing officer of their own company. If you have a business background, you know that there are, C-suite level people that all have their specialties. And pastor, if you're going to, you even know you can't be the CEO of your church. That's why we bring on executive pastors or executive assistants. You can't be the CFO. You got to bring on a financial advisor or a financial committee. And in the same way, you can't be the CMO, pastor. You have to focus on shepherding your people and being a servant leader. And oftentimes that means recognizing that you cannot be the only one to do it. So I'm going to go over 3 things. These are kind of like open letters. In fact, as we repost these individual messages across YouTube, these are almost going to be more in the letter format. And so, Pastor, I want to advise you, the first pitfall you have to avoid in marketing your church and trying to do this is trying to do it alone. Pastor, don't try to be the only church marketer. Don't try to be the only communicator in your church, thinking that you're the only one that can pull this off, the only one that can really do your website. And I'm not even saying from a skill level. I'm saying you've got maybe 30, 50, 75 people in your church, and you're like, well, no one else can do this, so I'm going to do it myself. I've seen those websites. I can spot those websites from a mile away. Boy, pastor obviously tried to do this on his own. And the worst part is, your people, your neighborhood, your community can notice that as well. Something's going to come up, pastor, and you immediately think, who am I going to get to do this? Well, I don't have anyone that I can do this. So when am I going to do this? And you're forced, when you take on these tasks of marketing your church by yourself, you're forced to really choose between 2 things. Should I sermon prep, or should I build the website? Should I optimize the Facebook ad, or see what's going on here with this, or try to figure out my Google business profile? Or should I go do this hospital visit? Well, obviously you're going to do the hospital visit. Obviously you're going to go make that house call or prepare for that funeral, which means the Google business profile, the Facebook ad, the logo, whatever have you, is going to be unmaintained, undone, and this progress is going to be completely halted. And what should take you a couple weeks is going to take you a couple years. Or you build something that's minimal viable, and then you never touch it again. I can also spot those websites. So, Pastor, I want to encourage you. If you ever catch yourself in that anxious position, and I find this self when I have my own anxiety going on, I feel like I'm stuck between making two poor choices. I just did that last night. I was real grumpy last night, and I was like, I have no good choice in this situation. I have to work hard this way, or work hard that way, and I have no way out. There is no right answer. I feel stuck, and that is a terrible place for you to be stuck in your family, with your friends, with your relationships, with your kids, with your parents. And now you gotta stay stuck on this. Like, well, what do I do? What do I give up? What do I sacrifice? You need to realize that this is something that, is a pitfall that we're gonna get into when we try to do these things ourselves. So what you have to do is take a hands-off approach. You have to ask yourself, can I do this? And even if I can, should I do this? Some of my best clients, in websites and Facebook ads, what have you, they also know how to run them themselves. And the fact that they know how to do it means they know how much time it's going to take, and more specifically, how much time it's going to take away from their pastoral duties. So then they go to the next part, which is, who do I know that can do this? Or who can I outsource this to? Or just say no. That's kind of like the three things. Okay, so first of all, can I do this? And if you could, you probably already would have, right? If you could figure out your Google presence and rank higher in Google so more people could find you during the holiday season, you probably would already have been doing it. Okay, so most of the time when a new marketing opportunity, when a new whatever comes up, a new best practice, a new article you read, and you're like, oh man, I should be doing more podcast appearances. You have to ask yourself, well, can I do this? And really the answer is probably no, because otherwise I would have already been doing this. There are some pastors that are great designers. They never have to ask themselves, should I make this sermon series graphic? It's not a question. They just do it, and they do it well. That's fine. So then you really come down to three other questions. Who do I know that can do this? And know that I said, I'm going to get myself in trouble. Know that I said, who do I know that can do this? Not who do I know that it can do this well? Because I understand sometimes you've got to pass the reins off to someone in your church to take on a project that you know they're going to fail a couple times at. The fact that I'm here and the fact that you're listening to me is because another pastor did that to me, right? Hey, you're good with computers. Can you do our website? It took me 6 months to figure out, but eventually we figured it out. So I understand it's not so much who do I know that can do this well, but who do I know that can do this, period. Because even if it needs to be done, it's better that it's done and then open-ended, which is never ending. But also, who can I outsource this to? If you are in a dire position where your church has been around the community for 80 years and you still pass people that say, I've never heard of that place before, this might not be something that should fall to someone you know. It should be to what can I do to outsource this? Okay. And I would specifically phrase it that way, not who can I outsource this to, but what can I do to make sure this is outsourceable? If you need someone to overtake your website, if you need someone to edit your sermons, if you need someone to do your social media, if you need someone to run ads or take over your Google ad grant, you may know someone you can outsource it to, but it's not the right person for the job. So then you have to ask, what can I do to make sure this is outsourced to the right people? This is often where we come in. We do free consults throughout the month. We had to limit it now to 5 because we were just getting too many. But you can go to 360.navachurchmarketing.com and apply for a consult. If you do it right now, the holiday months are pretty open, so we should be good for the next couple months. 360.navachurchmarketing.com and do a consult so you can see what it's like to at least outsource some of your discovery, which is how do we audit what we're doing and how do we develop that roadmap? And what does that roadmap look like as far as timeline, cost, people required, resources required, all that good stuff. And you'll kind of see exactly what it's like when you no longer have to think of what to do. You just have to answer the questions of what is and have someone come alongside and implement and execute it for you. So what do I have to do to outsource this? Do I have to do fundraising? Do I have to sell some church equipment? Do I have to approach a donor, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Everything in church that we have or that we want is in the hands of other people. The money we need to keep the building going, to keep the ministries alive, that money is in other people's hands. The time and talent that we need is in other people's hands. The attention that we need to spread the gospel is in other people's minds. Okay? So there's nothing wrong with going out and finding someone else to outsource a need to. And even if it's not a part of your church, it should be a good fit. It's a whole nother conversation about how to know who to outsource and who's going to do a good job for your church. We'll talk about that later, I'm sure. But you can always send me an email or shoot me a text, 832-861-7654, and we can just have a quick discussion about that. And then you might have to say no. You might have to say that's not something we're going to do right now. And that's, again, something that I don't like to say, but pastor, maybe if you can't outsource it and you don't have anyone to do it, maybe Facebook ads is not the thing for you to do right now because you've got to get your website straight. Maybe an app is not a good thing to spend time on because your website isn't straight. Maybe designing flyers and door knockers and going out in the middle of the week to do that is not the thing to do because you've got a backlog of people that you're supposed to contact, call, follow up with, pray for, reach out to, and visit. So going out and putting door knockers up is not what you should be spending your time on. So maybe you just say no to this right now. And maybe it's no, not right now, but maybe it's just no. We'll do that when I have someone that can do it for me or someone that I can outsource to. You take this hands-off approach because it's going to help you focus down on your ministry because no pastor should be the marketer first, okay? That is very difficult to do. I'm not saying it's impossible, but most small local church pastors are there to shepherd the flock. They already have to do financial planning. They already have to do executive administration and account management and all these other things that pastors have to do as part of just running the church as a business and running the church as an organization. To promote it is just one more thing that if you do it unwell, you're going to hurt all the other areas of your church. So take a hands-off approach. When an opportunity arises, be confident that you're going to do it well by finding someone to do it that can dedicate more time than you can, by someone that knows how to do it, so that your church can effectively market yourself and that you can reach more people with a better message because you're not writing it, which we'll get into in just a sec. I don't want to get too far into that. But pastor, I would rather you focus on your ministry and lead the flock to develop and build someone else to equip them to be the church communications person, then burn yourself out trying to do it yourself. And then eventually you swear off of it and your church is just going to sit there, and 80 years from now, you're going to be that church that no one's ever heard of. You need to make sure that you're not the only one doing this. And especially if you are the only one doing it, do not demand perfection. And that's done is better than perfect, because if you're just constantly aiming for perfect, it's going to stay on the back burner. And it's going to keep bleeding your time and bleeding your time and bleeding your time until eventually what's on the main dish is getting burned because you're not giving it your full attention. The other thing that pastors need to be aware of, pastor, don't write your own church communications. When it comes to writing announcements, your bulletin, your Facebook posts, your Google posts, your advertising, your flyers, your radio messages, even your slides, dude, don't write them yourself. Pastor, you are great at communicating from the pulpit. You are great at counseling. I'm assuming. However, when you start to write for those public communications, that's where your education and academic upbringing does not translate into what people need to see in a marketing message from the church or in communications from the church. I walked into a friend's house and I saw a church bulletin, obviously a church bulletin. Again, we can spot those from a mile away on the fridge. And this is perfect. This is exactly what most pastors want. They want someone to take that bulletin or that newsletter to take it home and, for lack of a better word, enshrine it in a place where they can reference and be connected to what the church is doing, whether that's prayerfully praying over it, prayerfully considering going, investing, whatever it is, right? But I look at this bulletin and it's full of language that I'm like, bro, I have no idea what this event is. What is a Mosaic community gathering? It's on Tuesday nights at 7, and I understand it's going to bless me and my family as we come together. But it doesn't say anything about what to expect. It doesn't say anything about who should I bring, what should I bring, do I need to sign up in advance? What is this? And I understand the pastor understands what it is. However, there was a lack of clarity because pastor has a very insider approach to the church. And you should. You should be able to, as a former associate pastor used to tell me, there are certain conversations that we have on this side of the door that if we took on the other side of the door would create a misrepresentation of the point we're trying to get across. Whereas we can have these debates inside on this side of the door, but as soon as we take it outside, it becomes a stumbling block. It becomes a bad witness. It becomes something that makes us look like an insidery club. And pastor, when you focus on writing your own messages, your own church communications, again, meaning like trying to write a Facebook post, trying to write an Instagram ad, trying to write a script for a YouTube video, you have a very good chance of communicating in a way that we would understand as Christians or that we would understand as part of your church. But to the outsider, it creates a very unclear message that really only communicates the church is not for me because I don't understand that language. And so when you try to spread the message that you're already teaching or just to use the language that you know and is effectively communicating to the church people, the outside world looks at that and says, what is this? Obviously, the church is not for me. Or obviously, this church is not for me because I have no idea what's going on. There is a place for insider language. There is a place for very appropriate, very specific Christian communications. Your marketing materials, your promotions, your advertising is not that place. Okay. So, one of the things that I like to do is to run what I call the mother-in-law test. I love my mother-in-law. It's the only time she's really ever come into a church is my wedding. And so whenever I write a piece of a website, a Facebook ad, whenever I write any marketing material for a church, that's specifically geared for the public. Okay. Now this is not your sermon message. If your sermon message is for the church, ignore the mother-in-law test because she's not a part of your church congregation. If you need to discipline your church, teach your church, preach your church, exhort your church, ignore this. This is for your marketing messages that go out into your community. I always run it through what I call the mother-in-law test, meaning if my mother-in-law, who has admitted herself, she's okay going to hell if that's the case. If that's where she's going, she's accepted it. She's going to have fun while she's on earth. And the only time she's really ever been to church is at our own wedding. If she sees this marketing message on behalf of my church, would she understand it? Would she feel comfortable taking action that I want her to take? Would it pass that test? Now, notice I answered those two. These aren't my notes. I'm going off notes here. Notice I said, does she understand it? And is she comfortable taking the action that I want her to take? Because it's one thing to say, hey, we have this event. It's on Tuesday nights. It's for you to figure out what God has for you, the purpose God has for you. Okay, I get that. Obviously I'm created for a purpose. I feel like I'm not living that. I need some clarity on what I'm supposed to do with my life. I'm in. But if I give her a very difficult action for her to take, so if you want to go to our church website and sign up, and then she goes to our website and she can't figure out where to go because she doesn't know connect means these are our ministry opportunities. She doesn't know that the events page is under ministry resources because why would she? She's not a ministry, so why would she need to be resourced? Right? And then maybe she does find the landing page that says all the information about this community gathering, but now it's asking for her name, her phone number, her address. It's asking her to pay $7 for a book. And in order to pay that $7, she can't just click, I want the book, here's my $7. She has to sign up for an account and then somehow know to give to the general giving budget. Nope. She's not going to understand that action. Okay. Your church, I just wrote this on, I think it was on Instagram right before I went live. Your church is not Taylor Swift. People are not going to wait in line and deal with broken software to try to get tickets to your events or to try to sign up for your services. Okay. You have to not only make sure that your communications are easy to understand, but you also have to make it easy to take action upon whatever you want them to do. Sign up, RSVP, call the church, text the church, fill in whatever form, but don't make it a tax form that I have to give you all my information that I don't want to give you. If I don't want to give you that information, my privacy is more valuable than whatever your church is promising for many people. So make it easy for them to understand, but also easy to take action on. Make sure that anyone from old Christian, young Christian, new Christian, non-believer, dead in the faith, completely militant against the church, whoever it is that this event is for, or that this ministry opportunity is for, or that this mission opportunity is for, will understand your message so they can see that the church is welcoming to them. And they can understand it's welcoming to them because they can understand it. If they don't understand the message, they will believe that your church is an insider culture, a club culture. It is for the church people. I am not one of those church people. Got a Google review. Yesterday, that came in for one of our clients and said, hey, this church is very unchurch-like. Why? Because it seems like they care about the community. They're doing events. They're resourcing for our young ones. It is incredibly heartbreaking to read that. I mean, we got to celebrate the fact that something this church is doing is communicating to the young people in this community. But also, I'm like lamenting a little bit, if I can be honest, because I'm looking at this and I'm like, when did the church become so unchurch-like? Or when did it become so unchurch-like for a church body to act like a functioning church body? To act like they care about the community. This is something that I'm trying to strive to do my best in whatever way God equips me and this company to do, to help churches become the cornerstone of their community. And it's just so weird that we've gotten to this point. And I think one of the reasons we've gotten to this point is because pastor is writing these messages, writing these announcements, writing these social media posts, writing these even bulletin announcements. So that when I do say, hey, by the way, I want to invite you to this, the bulletin says, I don't know what that means. Never mind. So we want anyone, Christian or not, to understand these messages that we put out to the community. Pastor, you can't write it yourself. You got to find someone that has been that hasn't been a Christian as long as you have, maybe, right? I think we often look at pastors and we're like, man, they had such a rough upbringing and they're such effective communicators for Christ. It's because they remember what it was like to not be a Christian. That's a good thing. I get jealous of those guys. That was if you haven't heard my testimony that I shared on I got to share it on one of the podcasts, the Faith and Family podcast. I was like, my testimony is the one you want for your kids. I was 4th generation raised in a church. People knew my name before I knew their name. It was incredibly awkward sometimes. It was embarrassing sometimes, but like, I'm the kid that you want, that was born and raised in the church. And it wasn't until I left my church home when I realized, boy, there is a lot more out in the world. There are so many people that live their lives without thinking about the church, and it was so foreign to me. And now I get to go to the pastors that were like me, and I was like, look, you don't understand how much this is miscommunicating. Pastor, don't write your own church communications. Again, go back to, who do I know that can write this? Who do I know that can edit this and be honest with me? Or who do I know that I can outsource this to write the communications that effectively communicate with clarity to our community? Man, so many C's in there. So that they will understand it and be compelled to take action. The last thing I want to talk to you about, a little warning for you, Pastor. Actually, this is less of a warning and this is more of an encouragement. Let's put it that way. Pastor, I want you to share the stage, not the pulpit. Like if you're the chief preaching guy, keep doing that. What I'm talking about is when you make all of your marketing, communications, and messages so centered and focused around you. There's a great, I can't remember his name. He's an up-and-coming pastor in the Dallas area. There's a great TikTok that I found. That was served up to me. And he was talking about deconstruction and how so many people have church hurt that turns them away from Jesus. And he said, you know what? He said, you weren't worshiping Jesus, you were worshiping the pastor. And if a pastor's shortcoming or a church's hurt breaks your relationship with Jesus, I don't think you ever really had a relationship with Jesus. You had a relationship with the pastor. You had a relationship with the entity of the church, and not the bride of Christ, and certainly not Christ himself. And so when you make it all about you, pastor, and they only see the pastor, what they actually see is that everything leans on the pastor, which is a big problem with discipleship right now. Is that, pastor, you've created all this work for yourself to do all the outreach, to do all the preaching, to do all the teaching, to do all the YouTube videos, to do all the Facebook ads, to do all the Facebook representation, to be the only face on the website, that people think, well, this church there's nothing for me here to do here except consume, because pastor's doing all the duplicating, pastor's doing all the replicating, pastor's doing all the teaching, pastor's doing all the inviting. And there's not much for me to plug into except to just go and do whatever pastor says, which is just come to church and follow my church disciplines. So, pastor, I would encourage you, if you're going to do some marketing for your church, share the stage. Let someone else do the announcements. We're good at that. Let someone else run the Facebook account. Not only run the Facebook account, let someone else do the Facebook videos. Let someone else make YouTube videos. We need to be equipping our people to teach on behalf of the church, that's not the pastor. Okay? You are creating more work for yourself when you think, I'm the only one that can be in videos. I'm the pastor. Therefore, I'm the only one that can be in the videos. And this is something that we really have to, we are working through as an agency. If I can be a little vulnerable for you, is one of the things we're doing is we help pastors create podcasts. We help pastors go out and be on podcasts and make public appearances. We coach pastors through creating social media content. And one of the things that we have to answer is, pastor, you're not the only face that should be on social media. And this is why when the pastor leaves in the view of a calling or out of injury or, God forbid, out of a falling from grace, quote unquote, whatever you call it, the church collapses or at least goes through a really big struggling time or a struggling season because everything is built upon this pastor where the center of the spoke reaches out and turns the wheel. But if that center leaves, that wheel is gone. Now, let me pull out from the ministry part of it and go back into the communication part of it. If you showcase, pastor, if you're the only face that I see on the website and the only face that I see in Facebook ads and the only face that I see in YouTube, there's nothing wrong with using your face to promote the church and to promote the works of God through the church. But if you're the only face, it's going to be really difficult for someone to step up because they're going to see it as they're taking your spot rather than this is something that I can do and I should do because I can be a face of the church. The church is not the pastor. The church is a body of believers. Everyone should be able to see these believers and say, wow, I can be a part of that. There's a stat that goes around that, most churches, their age group, their age demographic is going to be plus and minus 10 years of the pastor. That isn't because that's just the people that come. It's because they see the pastor and they say, well, if that's all I see, then that's the group of people that are going to come to this church. So if I'm 30 years old and I see a pastor that's 60, I'm going to say, and I only see the pastor that's 60, I'm going to say, well, this church must be more mature or older congregation than myself. And this is why, pastor, you can't get younger people in, is because all these young people only see your old face. Okay. No disrespect, but that's what it is. And so if you want those younger people to pay attention to your church, if you want those people to say, you know what, there is a place for the younger generation. You've got to put the younger generation on screen. You have to share the stage with that younger generation. It doesn't start with hiring a younger associate pastor that's going to teach for you. It doesn't start there. It starts with who are you putting as your face on the website, on your YouTube channel, on your Facebook ads, on your TikTok videos, on your Instagram pictures. You need to use those younger faces if you want to reach a younger audience. You are creating more work for yourself if you're trying to be the only face, and if you're leaving less room for people to plug in. This is why you're constantly having to do it on your own, because you've created that impression that you're the only one that can do this. Pastor, loosen the reins. Let others come alongside and be a face for the church. Let someone else that's not even a leader come in and assist you with promoting and marketing the church to help be the face of the church. Start with testimonials if you haven't already. But the same people that share those testimonials, that is not the only time they can be on camera representing what God is doing through your church. They can also do some online Bible lessons. They could do some online training videos. One of the greatest things that I love to see is someone, not the pastor, be on the website welcoming those and walking people through the church. And so more people, as they see people like them on the website and in your communications, they will see this is a place for me. A lot of times when I do coaching and consulting calls and pastors ask me, how do we get younger people? You got to show some younger people in your church. I don't want to go to my grandma's church. And so you have to showcase that there are people like me at your church. There are young singles like us at your church. This is why it's very tough to grow a new young person's ministry, college or young working adults, whatever you call them, singles ministry, whatever you call them. It's very hard to grow that because people want to go where those people already are. And if you're not showcasing any, they're not going to want to go because they don't want to be the only ones. They're going to go to where there already is an engaged and thriving young person's ministry. And it's not a problem if that's not your church, okay? So, pastor, share the stage. Share the camera. You don't have to be the one that's doing all the teaching online. Meaning if you want to do a devotional on Facebook, you don't have to be the one to do it. Share it with another lay leader in your church. And it doesn't have to be the youth pastor. It doesn't have to be the children's pastor. It doesn't have to be someone on staff. It can be another leader that you want to raise up. This is a great opportunity for someone who has surrendered to the faith. This is a great opportunity to let them be a part of the face of the church. And if you do that, if you loosen the reins, if you let others be the face of the church with you, you're going to see more people in your community. They're going to recognize, okay, this isn't a place where just the pastor gets to say. This is a place where I can come and be a part of something bigger because they're on camera. They're on camera. I see them writing articles. I see them posting on behalf of the church and answering and doing communications. So there is obviously something to plug into here. And if you want to be a church where we don't want to be a consumer church, we don't want you to just come in here and be a butt in the seat, then show someone else being something other than a butt in the seat of your church. And if I hurt your feelings, you send us a message. hello@novachurchmarketing.com. If you got offended when I said you got to get your old face off the camera. Look, evaluate what you're doing right now, pastor. And then recognize that if you're struggling to just carry this burden right now, how are you ever going to take advantage of all the opportunities that we have at our disposal to reach more people in our community? And by the way, if you want to know what all those opportunities are, you want to see how little you're actually getting done on your own, checklist.novachurchmarketer.com. I'll have a link down below to get that free checklist. And you can see exactly, if you think you're turning your wheels and you're maxing your capacity on just doing the website is one piece of a 9-part plan that includes 90 moving pieces. So if you're struggling just to manage the website on your own, there is no way you are going to effectively reach more people than those who are just already looking for a church website. There is no way that you're going to reach more people that are searching for the church, that God is calling to him, and they're looking for churches to plug into or to visit. And there's no way you're going to go and out and reach more people that don't even know they don't know you outside of your circle. You need to stop being the only one trying to do the church marketing for your church. Do the communications for your church. If you say, I'm the only one that can do this, and I'm not going to do anything till I can do it well, you are sabotaging your church marketing efforts. If you are the only one, pastor, writing your church communication messages, you're writing the bulletin, you're writing the Facebook posts, you're writing the YouTube descriptions, you're writing the advertisements, you are sabotaging your church marketing efforts. And if you are the only one that allows yourself to be the face of the church, and you don't allow anyone else to speak, to share the gospel, in a public manner, not saying you're not equipping your people to be disciples, but if you're the face of the place, you are sabotaging your church marketing efforts, and you will continue to just get the same kind of people because you're not going to reach anyone outside of that circle, outside of that age range, plus and minus 10 years of the pastor. Because they see your face, they say, that's the kind of person that can go to that church. Share the stage. It's okay. I'm not saying share the pulpit, the preaching, the teaching, the equipping. I'm talking about the message. Someone else can invite the families to your Easter egg hunt. Someone else can invite families in your area to come to Christmas services.